Hi, and welcome to Trex Academy, where you can learn everything you need to know about building your deck project. I'm Devin, and I'm here with Lindsay. And yesterday we finished up pouring all of our concrete footings so that we knew by the time we came here today, they would be hard enough so we could start setting our posts and also install our beams.
Yeah, so what do we do to get started?
All right, so the first thing we'll be doing is find the location of our ledger board at the house. So I've actually got some example pieces here so we can lay that out.
Okay.
So first of all, it's important to note that our ledger board is the main contact from our deck to the house. Okay, so this is going to be our ledger board, and when we have that, we'll also have the location for all of our joists.
Okay.
So you can see the bottom of these are equal, so once we have our joists running out, we're going to know the location of our beams because all of our joists rest right on top of our beams.
Got it. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Once we have that determined, we'll also know exactly where to cut our posts.
Great.
All right, so let's go ahead and go towards the house.
Okay.
We're going to find the location of that ledger board.
All right.
All right, so before we can find the location of our ledger board, we actually need to find the exact height of where our deck is going to be.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start by talking a little bit about different deck configurations.
Sure.
Because I think what you'll mostly see is you'll have your deck board come up just below the threshold of your door, of course with a little bit of gap right there. But you can also see what we're doing in our case is called a step down, which is going to be dropped 6 inches from that threshold.
Okay. So what went into that decision?
Right, so the most important reason we're doing that is because that was the original configuration of this deck on the house.
Okay.
So we know that it's structurally supportive of our ledger board once it goes in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's
so
really
next
important.
question,
Yeah.
why would they have chosen to do that step down
The
configuration?
step down instead of the step out. The main reason, this area actually gets a lot of snow.
Okay.
So instead of building up against the door, then when you open it, all that snow comes in, now you've actually got a buffer instead.
Oh, that's a smart idea. Okay. I like that.
Yep, so we're gonna stick with that design. Just go ahead and measure 6 inches down from our door. Make a mark right there for me if you
I
would.
think I can do that. There you go.
This is the top of our deck.
All right.
So it should look something about like that.
Okay.
So you need to get whatever finishing materials you're using. In our case, we're using Trex Enhance. It's gonna go right at the top. We're gonna use this material as a guide as we go down. Okay, we're gonna be switching out, obviously, whatever material we're using for the next step. Let's get this leveled. Have you make a mark for me.
No problem. There you go.
All right, perfect. So we know that all of our deck boards are going to rest on top of the frame, which is going to be made out of our joists and our ledger.
Yep.
So that's what the height of that is. That's
Okay.
our ledger board and our joist. So let's just keep doing the same thing. In this case, we have the material that all of our joist and our ledger board are going to be made out of. And we'll put that in place.
Okay.
Level that. Okay. Go ahead and make a mark underneath.
There you go.
Now we're getting to what we were really after, which is our beam height and the bottom of our beams.
Okay.
So now we're bringing in a 2x10. This is the material that all of our beams are going to be made out of, except they're going to be doubled. So if we bring this up, again doing the same process, we're going to be leveling it right there. But instead of making a mark underneath, we've actually got a scrap piece of 2x4.
Yeah, I saw
Probably noticed that, right?
What are we using that for?
Yeah, I'll show you exactly what we're going to use that for in just a minute. I want to keep you
keep me in
guessing.
suspense.
That's right.
Okay.
So for now, let's go ahead and attach this. And now we have the location of the top of our beam and the bottom of our beam.
Okay, great. So just to recap, make sure I remember. So we have our deck boards here, that's
Right.
that line. We have our ledger and our joist.
And joist,
Same
yeah.
size or same material. And then the beams.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. All right, we're ready to drop in our first post.
Yeah, we are.
We're using 6x6s for this project.
Okay.
But before we actually start marking the posts, I'm first going to show you how to make a simple stand that could work as a helping hand.
All right.
Just in case you're doing a project like this again. Maybe you're doing it alone, or if you just want to make things a little easier.
Cool.
So all you need to do that is some scrap lumber, which in our case we're using 2x4s, and then you just need some screws to fasten it all together.
Great. Yeah, it looks like this is all stuff you'd have lying around on the
Yeah,
site.
exactly. And even if you don't, it'd be really easy to just rip it down to size and make it work one way or another.
Cool.
All right, we'll go ahead and mark this first piece.
Okay.
We'll get it all put together. All right, Lindsay, we've got our stand built. So if you don't mind, you'll actually put that right between our posts.
Okay.
Kind of try to line it up as well as you can.
Sure.
Also, go ahead and set these tools next to it. We'll need that for the next step.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna go ahead and grab our straight edge. All right, so for our straight edge, we're actually using a 2x4. You could use any size lumber, just make sure it's as straight as possible. And Lindsay, you finally get to see what that whole secret about the 2x4 shelf was all about.
Ah, I love it. It's like having an extra hand.
Exactly, well, especially with the stand that we made here.
Yeah.
I think that looks good.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna start this process out by getting it as level as possible just with our eyes.
Okay.
I think it looks pretty good. It's a good place to start. Just go ahead and clamp it. All right, very nice. Hand me that clamp right there, and I'll go clamp it at the back. Okay, so from here, we're gonna be taking this 4-foot level that we have,
Okay.
throw this right on top, and now we'll be able to get it exactly level.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna have you do this process. When you're doing it, you're just gonna use your hand essentially as a clamp to support some of the weight of this 2x4 as you're working it, okay? Go ahead and start to adjust it.
Oh, yeah,
And then as you get pretty close, like you are now, you can actually roll your wrist and it'll get that movement a little more precise.
I gotcha.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay,
Great.
clamp it in. Great job.
Thanks.
All right, so now let's think back again about what we're accomplishing. So we have the bottom of our beam, and this line is coming all the way across both of our posts. So we will be marking the bottom of our beam once we plumb them, but it's always important to remember that that's actually going to be not the top of our post, but where our beam lands on our post.
Okay.
So no matter what option you use for your post to beam connection, that's always going to be where the beams sit on top.
Okay.
And we'll go over a few of those different options in just a minute.
All right.
So let's go ahead and get our post level on.
Sure.
All right.
Right.
So you're just going to be basically making sure they're level in all directions.
Okay. Oh,
Should
so
be pretty,
close.
yeah,
Yep,
it should
there
be
we
close
are,
to in
there we
line
are,
with
right
this right
there.
here. All right, perfect. Make a line here. All right, so we'll do the same thing on our other posts, but again, just remember that's the bottom of our beam. So that is where our beam will land on our post.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, so now let's take a look at the different options that we have for connecting your beam to your post. So we've actually made some different mock-ups showing both approved and non-approved methods for that connection point. I think it'd be a good idea if we kind of go through them one by one and see if you think they're either approved or not.
Okay.
Sound okay?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make it a little bit easier. I will give you some criteria to determine whether it's approved or not.
Okay.
Okay, so the most important one has to be, is it code approved in my municipality?
Makes sense.
First thing we're looking for. Now, obviously, I don't expect you to know everything about code in this area, but here are the two main things that are driven by code that you'll be looking for. One is going to be, does the beam rest on and is it fully supported by the post?
Okay.
It's the first thing you're looking for.
All right.
The other one is, can it support a sudden shift? So that would be that lateral movement. Say that you have a large gust of wind or maybe even an earthquake. It needs to be able to deal with those forces.
Okay.
Okay?
Got it.
Okay, so here we have a 4x4 post and our double 2x10 beam resting on top of it. That's all connected by our 1/2-inch nuts, bolts, and washers.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you think of that?
Well, first off, it checks the first, well, I guess technically the second box,
Yeah,
which is
right.
the beams are supported by the post.
Okay.
But the next box of that sudden shift and the lateral support, it looks like it is barely supported in that way.
you're
Like
exactly
this
right.
lateral support looks super thin.
I'm pretty sure if we put enough force, it would actually just break right now. So you're right, it checks the box, the beam is on the post, but we're missing that lateral movement, that lateral structure. That's just not gonna cut it. There's no structure on the back of that to make that strong.
So not approved, I'm
Not
guessing?
approved,
All
nope,
right.
nope. You're 1 for 1. All right, so we still have the same materials. Here we're actually looking at a 4x4, again with our double 2x10 beam. So what do you think of this one?
Well, this one still looks supported by that post, so that's good. And it looks like laterally it's way more secure.
Right.
So these actually look like code approved.
Yeah, our brackets that we
yeah,
have on there.
brackets,
Yeah,
yep.
brackets and fasteners both are approved.
Yep. So I'd say this is code approved.
Yeah, exactly. It's got everything we need. All right. So this time I'm gonna throw a new material at you, see if I can throw you off or not. So we've got our 6x6. We still have those 2x10s on either side.
All right.
And that's all joined together with those 1/2-inch nuts, bolts, and washers. Okay, so what do you think of that one?
So laterally it looks good. This could withstand a high wind.
Absolutely.
But it is not supported. These beams are not supported by the post at all. You're going to have to give me something a little more difficult
you're getting good
than
at
that.
this. Yeah, so that's almost the opposite of the first one that we had. So you're right, not approved. Okay, so here's what it should look like if you want to use those materials and it be code approved.
Okay.
So we still have our 6x6, then we still have our double 2x10 beam on top.
Okay.
Now we have our approved brackets as well. Approved.
Yep.
Okay, everything we need. All right, so let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
And wow, now we have a triple beam on top of a 4x4. What do you think of that?
Well, the triple beam is not the issue, but I'd say the 4x4 is.
Yeah.
So these
you're exactly
first two
right.
beams are supported fully by that post.
Which is great.
Yeah, but this third one is barely sitting on it.
Not at all.
So not
No.
approved.
Definitely not approved. No, that's not gonna work. So instead, what we should have seen is a 6x6. So you should never have a triple beam supported by a 4x4. Because just like you said, it wasn't fully supported. Our beam isn't fully supported, so it's just not gonna work, okay? So again, same situation. Now we have a beam that is fully supported on our post, and we have our approved fasteners.
Yep,
Good
that
to
looks
go.
way more secure.
And brackets, yeah. All right, so now we're moving on to the final option, and actually the option that we're gonna be using.
Okay.
So what we've got here is a 6x6, notched out to the same dimensions as our double 2x10 beam.
Okay.
You can see that's all held together with those 1/2-inch nuts, bolts, and washers. And now we have a really secure connection checking all the boxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously this is code approved since
Right.
we're using it.
Absolutely.
Why did you choose this option for the deck?
So like over the other code approved versions that we've seen?
Yep.
Okay, so really it comes down to preference for this project specifically. So we are gonna have a drop beam and we know that we're gonna have a cantilever past that. So this just checks all the boxes and it's really a bit of a preference to be honest with you.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we know which option we're gonna be using, we can go ahead and start notching out the rest of our post.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it.
Hi, Jason.
Hey, Lindsay, good to see you
Good
again.
to see you too. How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good, good. Jason, this is Devin. Devin,
Hi,
Jason.
Jason.
Hey, Devin, nice to meet you.
Jason is a friend of mine who's going to build a deck on his own house. He heard we were in the framing stage of our project and wanted to come observe with the understanding, of course, that we're going to put him to work while he's here.
Perfect, yeah, we have plenty of work to go around, so no problems there. Have you done any projects like this in the past, maybe stuff around the house?
Yeah, I've done a fair amount. I've done some drywall, replaced some old wood floors, built a shed in my backyard.
Oh, that's great, that'll
but never
help.
any deck framing.
Okay.
The decking and the railing seem pretty straightforward, but I really need to build my confidence on the deck framing, so I'm excited to learn from a pro.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let me catch you up to speed on what we've done so far. First, we tore down the old pressure-treated deck. After we cleaned up the area, we staked out our frame to find our beam location so we could then find the location of our 12 by 24 inch deep post holes, which we then dug. The building inspector came by to inspect our post hole depth, and after that we mixed and poured 6 inches of concrete in each hole.
Looks like you guys have been super busy.
Yeah, we really have. We've gotten a lot of work done, but we still have a lot to do. So I'm gonna put you to work right away. Go ahead and grab that first post for us. I'll grab this one and we'll take it over to our workspace. All right, so now we're ready to make the rest of the marks that we need to notch out our post. Obviously, we already have the bottom of our notch, but we also need the top. So I think it'd be nice if we bring in a small piece of the beam material that we're gonna be using. So we can see our beam is gonna rest right on the remainder of our post that we have after our notch. So we need to cut out the bottom, the top, and also that sideline so this can rest right on top.
Got it.
Okay, so there's a couple different ways to find the top of our notch. One is gonna be to just get some of the material like we have here. We'll measure the height at 9 1/4, measure from the bottom of our notch to the top, 9 1/4 right there, and we would just use a speed square to transfer that line all the way across.
Okay.
So the other way to do it, since we already have a scrap piece of material, would be to take our square, put it right at that line. And it's really important to keep this square. You don't want the top of your post to be out of line. So we'll just put that material right up against there, and now we know exactly where our beam is gonna rest, but also where the top of our post is and the top of our notch cut. Okay, so just make a line right here. And now we're going to transfer that line all the way around our post. I cut my notch cut perimeter lines with my circular saw at full depth, then I'll use my reciprocating saw to cut the remainder. We're now down to 3 cuts with the circular saw and just 2 cuts with our reciprocating saw. This way is faster, safer, and there's no chiseling, even though it looks really fun. So don't get me wrong, the repetitive cut and chisel method is just fine, but this is the method I prefer. All right, Jason, very nice job. The notch looks great. For this next step, you're gonna need these gloves. You're also going to need this treatment because we're going to be putting a wood preservative on any of the areas that we've cut for the notch.
Okay.
So now we're going to repeat the process for all of our posts. We're going to be finding the mark for the top of our post, but also the mark for the top of our notch, cutting all of our notches out, and then treating all of those cuts with our wood preservative.
Cool.
So once all of our posts are prepared, we're going to be dropping them into the post holes, and finally, we'll be installing our beams.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's
All
get
right.
our hands dirty.
Let's get right to it. The steps for installing our beams in this section of the deck is going to be virtually the same for our middle and our lower deck all the way at the end.
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to start that process by finding the end of our beam right here, which is also going to be the edge of our post in this situation.
Sure.
Cool. Next thing we'll do is plumb up all of our posts, which is just make sure that they're straight up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. With that out of the way, we'll be making our beams. We're going to be making them in place because they are going to be pretty long. Once we have them made though, we'll be securing them to our post with 1/2-inch bolts, nuts, and washer.
All right.
Okay, after that, all we have left to do is backfill all the holes, and the beams for this section of the deck will be done.
Great.
All right, so let's get right to it. We're going to start with this post that we have in front of us right here.
Okay.
It's coming straight out from the corner. That's going to be the edge of our deck, okay? So since that's the edge of our deck and where our beams and our post all meet, we really need to make sure that we're dead on right here.
Got it.
All right, so typically what we've been doing, we've been using that string, connecting it to that stand, and then we can move it around.
Right,
to make
using
sure
that 3-4-5 method, right?
Right, exactly.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So 3-4-5 method is a way to square up the deck with the house. So it's a way to find that right angle. So all you do is measure 3 feet on the house, 4 feet out from the house, and then you measure the diagonal from the edge of that 3-foot mark to the 4-foot mark, and it should be 5 feet.
Oh, okay,
3, 4,
that makes
5.
sense.
Yep, it gives us that 90-degree angle.
Sure.
So we are going to be using a version of that. We're going to be extending it because obviously we have a larger scale, but I'm going to show you a tool that we can use. It's going to make it faster and easier to find that 90-degree angle and extend it out.
I like it.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's go ahead and build that tool and I'll show you guys exactly how to use it. So we've got that custom tool, which is basically just a massive square.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So let's start out by getting it tight to the corner. Doesn't have to be level, but we should get it pretty close.
Okay.
I think it looks good right there. So Jason, go ahead and secure that screw over there.
Will do.
I'll get this one here. All right, obviously this end is standing right on top of our post. That's gonna hold that in place. All right, Jason, if you don't mind, go grab those scrap 2x4s that we have. We're gonna be using those as a brace here in just a minute.
Got it.
Cool.
All right,
Oh, Devin, I just noticed this gap right here.
come out right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, right, I see your confusion. So you would think since we're tied up against the wall right in that corner, that we should be square right here.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it's pretty common to see this, especially in this case, we've got a fireplace chase, not exactly structural to the rest of the house.
Okay.
So it's pretty common to see this. The important thing is that's why we didn't use a string square against that wall, because it wouldn't have been square, which means the rest of our deck all the way down wouldn't have been either.
And that would not have been good.
Exactly. So instead, we are using that 3-4-5 method
Okay.
to make sure we're square with the house.
All right.
Okay?
Good.
So let's go ahead and plumb up our first post.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and use our post leveler. Go ahead and lift that
Yeah,
side up for me.
What's going on here?
Get that right over there. Hey, thanks for grabbing those, Jason.
You got it.
All right, you can go ahead and set it down.
Okay.
So it is important to note we made a mark on our giant square right at 6 foot, because according to our plans, 6 foot away from the wall is right where our beam should be. Okay, we're gonna go down here now. That'll be our first point to line our post up. Got that in position. I'm gonna temp that up really quick. All right, so with this in position, it's gonna give you guys the ability to plumb up our post really easily. So Lindsay, you'll just grab up on the end there, taking the weight off the post.
Okay.
And then Jason, what I want you to do is you're gonna move this around until both of your levels, that bubble has to be right in between the lines.
I think I can do that.
Just say
All right,
when.
drop it down.
Got
Okay.
it? All right, very nice.
Looking good.
All right, so we have it plumbed, but obviously if we take our square off right now, it's just gonna fall over.
Yeah.
So we're gonna use those braces that you got to hold everything in place.
Ah, so that's what these are for, huh?
Exactly.
There you go.
So I'll get this first one, then I want both of you to put one in.
Sounds good.
Okay, so what we'll do first, go ahead and slam it in, make sure it holds position, secure it up. All right, let's repeat that process.
All right. So we're just gonna...
Give you a little space there.
There we go. Got it.
All right, very nice job. Everything still look good over there?
Everything looks great over here.
Okay, it's good to go. So now we can remove our giant square and everything's gonna stay exactly where it is. So now let's just repeat the same process on the other 3 posts next to the house.
Sounds good to me.
Easy enough.
You got
Got
that?
it? Yep.
Okay, so we've got our first post plumbed, and to find that location was actually pretty easy because we knew we were gonna be starting from the corner that we have right here.
Right.
So for our next post, what we'll be doing is going back to our plans to find the center mark for the next post from that corner.
Cool.
It's gonna be 54.5 inches, okay?
Okay.
All right, so what we'll do from this point, Lindsay, have you grab the end of that tape,
Yep.
take it to that corner,
Got it.
and we'll get a mark right at 54.5 inches. Right there. All right, got it. That's gonna be the edge of our square.
Okay.
Okay, but it's also important to note that this isn't the edge of the post that we're looking for. We're actually looking for the center of the post.
Okay.
So I've made a mark right on the center of our 6x6, and that's gonna be the point that the edge of our square intersects.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and pull our giant square up to the wall, get it secured. Again, my edge is coming to the line that I've already made, and we need to be pretty close to level. Looks good. Secure that in place. All right, now we're just repeating the same process as before.
Okay.
We already have our line, so that line still matters, that 6 foot line away from the house. That's gonna be the position of our beam on the post.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
can line that up, but also make sure that you line up the center post line with the edge of that square.
Got it.
Okay, Lindsay, you wanna give that a shot?
Sure.
All right.
Oh, can you hand me the
Yeah, absolutely.
the level?
Got
Make
it.
sure it's plumb, right?
Yeah, we will need that.
Lift that
Good
up.
catch.
All right. Got that on. Can you guys keep holding that for
Okay.
me, and I will go ahead and move this. All right, I think we're good. You can let it down.
Go.
All right, looks perfect. Let's go ahead and temp it in place, and we'll go through the same process we did before.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're ready to start installing our beams. Go ahead and drop it on that notch. And Lindsay, just make sure that it's flush with the end of our post right there.
Yep,
right,
we are
perfect.
flush.
There, Lindsay?
Yep, we're good.
All right, so if this were a smaller deck, say maybe like 12 foot wide, it'd be really easy to just go over to your sawhorse, cut both your 2x10s at once, put them together, and you have your beam. You just walk it over, wouldn't be a big issue. But we're working on a 22 foot wide deck, which means we need a 22 foot wide beam. It'd be pretty hard to carry over by yourself, right?
Yeah, it sounds pretty heavy.
It's not really practical. So what we're gonna do instead, we're gonna be making our beam right here. Okay, so we've got our first 2x10 in place. We've got it flush with the end, right?
Yep, it is
Good to go
flush.
there. Okay, so Jason, all I need you to do is extend that middle line that we have for our post right onto our 2x10.
Got it.
Okay, because remember, this 2x10 needs to be at the center so that the next 2x10 that comes up, they're both fully supported on the post. All right, got that marked, perfect. Now let's just lift it up in place.
All right.
We'll rest it right on the top of our post. Okay, so we're just gonna be cutting this right here. It is important though that we come down just a little bit. Make sure that you're a little bit past the half of the post over there.
Yep, we're
Good on
good.
that side.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we're ready to cut. All right, let's go ahead and drop this 2x10 back in the notch. Make sure that it ends flush.
All right, we are
All right,
flush.
perfect. So now we're going to secure it in place for now with some exterior grade wood screws. Jason, I'm going to have you go ahead and fasten this right here.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that we avoid any placement where our 1/2-inch bolts are going to go through.
Yeah, we'll
Okay?
do.
Do the same thing down here.
Okay.
And on the end. Just going to hold everything in place so we can keep working on our beam.
Good.
All right. Now we're just going to do the same thing with the next 2x10 in this row. So let's go get that, get it cut down. All right, very nice. Got our first row of our 2x10 going all the way down.
Yep.
It's great.
Hey guys, it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot of things here, but I got to get
You
going.
leaving us?
No
Yeah, I'm
problem.
leaving.
All right.
All right, well, thanks for coming out,
Lindsay, good
Jason.
seeing you again.
Thanks for all the help. It was great to meet you.
Devin,
man.
very nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
You're welcome on the site anytime. Well, we have to get back to work. Let's go ahead and grab our next 2x10.
Sounds good.
We've got our 2x10, other half of our beam.
All
Go ahead and
right.
set that on our notches and make sure that that end is perfectly flush.
Okay. We're
How you
getting
looking?
close here.
If you need to, you can tap it with your hammer.
Good
Move it a little
call.
easier.
I'm gonna do that.
And we're using the same method that we did.
We're perfectly flush.
All right. So we're using the same method that we did to find this first row of our 2x10s.
Okay.
But instead we're actually working the opposite direction.
Why are we working the opposite direction?
Well, you can see we've got a splice right here on our post.
Yeah.
So instead of stacking 2 splices on one post, we're going to be putting that other splice right here.
Is that code?
No, not everywhere. It's more of a best practice thing. Like if we could avoid that pivot point or that hinge, why not do it?
Makes sense.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
flush down there.
Yeah.
I go ahead and make my mark over here.
Okay.
Mark the top. And then once we get this marked up, let's go ahead and put it on top of our post
Sounds
instead
good.
of walking over to our sawhorses.
All right.
Got it?
Yep.
There we go. And just to make sure that we don't cut through that 2x10, we're going to elevate it up a little bit.
Makes sense. Here, let me get that for you.
Okay. Thank you. Very nice.
Okay.
All right, as long as it's secure,
Yep.
ready to cut. All right, so our next step is going to be to draw out our pattern that we're going to need to fasten this 2x2 to our other.
So since you just said pattern, I'm assuming that means we can't just put our fasteners wherever we want?
Oh, absolutely not. No, so that's going to be determined by your local municipality.
Okay.
And in this municipality, it needs to be 2 inches from the bottom, 2 inches from the top, and 2 inches from the end.
Okay.
So you also need to be 16 inches apart from each other at every place that we put our fasteners.
Okay.
All right, so with that in mind, pull out your square. You should notice that it's got a little mark at 2
Yep,
inches.
I see that right
You're
here.
going to start all the way at the end. If you put your pencil in that notch, you can drag it all the way across and we'll have that 2-inch mark. All right, very nice.
Okay.
Okay, so now we need to make that mark 2 inches away from our end. Obviously to do that, just make a mark.
Makes
Measure it
sense.
2 inches. There we go. Just get our square back out.
Okay.
Continue that line all the way up. All right, from here, let's get our tape back out, setting it at that 2-inch mark. I'll
Okay.
give that in to you.
Sure.
And we need to make a mark at every 16 inches.
Got it. Okay, we are all set.
All right, I'm gonna let go of this.
Okay.
Okay, doing the same thing as we did in our 2-inch mark. We're just gonna continue that line all the way up. And every point that that vertical line comes in contact with those 2-inch lines, we're gonna have a fastener right there, top and bottom.
Okay. Okay, Devin, so I haven't seen these fasteners yet.
Okay, first time, huh?
Yeah. So why are we using these versus the other fasteners
Right,
that
the
we've
ones
been
we're
using
using
so
to
far?
just hold this up in the position.
Yeah.
All right, so at this point, we actually need structural screws because we're creating a beam. So we need to make sure it's really sturdy.
Okay.
That's going to be dictated by our local municipality.
Gotcha. So do
Okay.
we have options, or do we have to use this specific fastener?
No. We've got a lot of different options. Could be some different nails, some different screws. But again, you do need to check with local municipality to determine what you can use in your area.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Got it.
If you're curious, what we're using in this case is going to be 3-inch Simpson Strong Tie SDWS screws, made exactly for an application like this.
Got it. Say
right.
that 3 times fast.
Yeah, I know. It's a bit of a mouthful, but just in case you ever want to go and find these in the store, that's what you need to look for.
Okay, good
All right?
to know.
So I'm going to get started on this end. What I want to do, since we already have it up here, we'll get all these screws started,
Okay,
and you go down and work on that side. I'll meet you in the middle.
sounds good.
Okay. All right, so we're ready to attach this 2x10 to the
Okay.
other one, start making our beam.
Sounds good.
Let's go ahead and set it on the notch. Just make sure that your end is perfectly flush with the other 2x10.
Oh, I need you to bring it toward me about 1/4 inch.
Okay.
Right there. Perfect.
Yeah?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and clamp it in place.
Okay.
And then so after we get this clamped, I'm gonna go ahead and sink the last 2 fasteners over here.
All right.
I'll just have you finish the rest working this way. And then while you're doing that, I'm gonna be taking care of this last section of our beam.
Sounds good.
Whoa, good catch.
Hey,
Almost
yeah,
forgot to
thanks.
coat the ends of our 2x10s, huh?
Well, lucky for you, I'm here.
Yeah, at least somebody's paying attention.
Yep.
Okay, very nice. Once you get that done, if you don't mind, I think that'd be a great time to coat the end of this 2x10 as well.
Right
That
you
looks good.
are.
All right.
A little bit more. Okay, you're all set.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and set it down.
Yeah, and I'll get the ends.
It's
well.
flush. All right, perfect. I'll go ahead and clamp this in place. All right, all good over there?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get this in place.
All
Get our
right.
first beam complete.
Okay, what's next? We need to bolt this to the post. Right?
Almost there. The beam's done. Our next step would be to bolt this to our post. But before we do that, just want you to kind of rub your hand over the top of our beam. See if you notice anything.
Yeah, there is a clear difference in height here.
Right, exactly.
So do we need to fix that?
Yeah, we definitely do. So the reason this will be a problem is as our joists pass over it, we just want to make sure that they're fully supported on top of the beam and they're not just resting on half of the beam, right?
Yeah, sounds
Be a bit of a
important.
problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how do we fix it?
All right, so in our case, we're going to be using an electric planer.
Okay.
I'm just going to make shallow passes all the way down to the point where we think they're going to be even. Okay.
Makes sense. Now, is that
All right.
the only way we can fix this, or do we have alternatives?
There are a couple different ways. This is one of them, using that electric hand planer. In my case, I do this job pretty often, so I think it would be a good investment if you're going to be doing this a lot. It's more efficient and faster.
Okay.
But if you're only going to be doing this once, and maybe it's in your budget, to just go get an old manual hand planer.
Okay.
Work just as well, okay? All right, so if you don't mind, just kind of feel down. Look for a spot
Sure.
where it's starting to get even.
Okay.
That way I know exactly where to plane down to.
I'd say right about here, it feels like.
Good there?
Yeah.
All right,
You
just
need
make
to
a mark
it?
for me.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm gonna put my ears in. We're just gonna start planing it.
Great.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so this is nice and even now.
Yep.
We've planed it, we've treated it. And now, are we finally ready to attach the beam to the post?
We're ready. That is the
Okay.
next step.
Great.
All right, so you'll remember earlier we made halfway marks on all of our posts.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be using that line, just transferring it straight across our beam.
Okay.
But in some of our posts, we have a splice, right? Where part of our beam met together.
Yeah.
So when we have that splice, we need to make sure that we're bolting on the side of that splice.
Okay.
So in that case, we'll actually be aiming for kind of the middle, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right about in here.
All
Okay?
right, yeah, so if we have a splice, then it's actually 4 bolts that we're putting in, 2 up top.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
2 on one side, 2 on the other.
Yep.
In this case, no splice, right in the middle with 2 bolts. Okay?
Got it.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and transfer that line across our beam,
Okay.
then follow it down the face. And since the same rules apply that we did for our structural screws, that's 2 inches from the top and 2 inches up from the bottom. We already have those lines, so with this line on the face, we know exactly where we need to drill the holes for our 1/2-inch bolts.
Great.
All right, we got our big square back out.
Yeah, miss
Can't get
this
enough
guy.
of this thing, can we?
I know. There we go.
All right, make sure we're flush with the end.
Yeah, looks flush
Good.
to me.
Okay. Also important to make sure we have it tight up against our beam. All right. So originally we used this big square against the house to make sure we had all of our posts in line.
Yeah.
But since we know that this is parallel to the house and that it's straight, we're going to be starting right here instead.
Okay, so this is now our new reference point, not the house.
Exactly.
So this is essentially the exact same process.
It really is, yeah.
Okay, so we will establish our edge.
Which we've got right here.
Yep,
edge of our
flush
square.
up our post, then assemble the beam and attach the beam to
Put
the
it all
post.
together. Yep. So then we'll also come back and backfill all of our post holes and the beams will be done.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. All right, so we've installed our front beam and from there we've been backfilling all of our post holes. Remember, our system starts with that 6-inch concrete footing at the bottom and we have our post resting on top of that. Now we're backfilling with gravel. Gravel is great because it allows drainage to go straight through and away from our post instead of sitting on top of that concrete footing. It's also code approved though, which is really important.
Wait, so even the backfill material has to be code approved?
Yeah, I know, it seems kind of crazy, but this is a really important part of the deck.
So are there any other materials that we could use besides gravel, or is gravel pretty much it?
No. There's actually a lot of different options that we have, but sometimes the code municipality will tell you exactly what you need to use. So
Okay.
maybe there's a municipality where you need concrete poured all the way from the bottom to the top of the hole. Others might just need soil to backfill, but we know that gravel is approved, and again, with those drainage benefits, that's what I prefer to use.
So I'm starting to see a trend here.
Yeah.
Always check with your municipality
Right.
first.
Always
on
check.
everything.
It's just important. Again, this is going to be a deck. There could be a lot of people up here. We just need to make sure that it's structurally sound all the way throughout. Okay?
Makes
All right.
sense.
Let's go ahead and finish backfilling this hole.
All right,
After we get done with this, we're going to move on to laterally bracing our beams.
sounds good.
Just got a few more of these lateral braces to install.
Okay,
Get it lined up with the top and the side of the post.
we're good right here.
Okay, looking good here.
Now these braces are permanent, right? They're not like the temp ones we put on the post.
Yeah, nope, it's exactly right. It's going to be part of our frame once they're installed.
Okay,
Yep.
so let me guess, code?
Yeah, you're really catching on. We don't do much for fun around here. It is always going to be 2 code or above. And yeah, like you said, this will be part of the deck, part of our frame.
Okay, and what is the point of this? Why do
All right,
we have to have
right.
these on our deck?
So you can see that we've got our beam to post connection. We want to make sure that we keep that to a right angle. So as we have lateral movements and lateral motion on the deck, this just kind of minimizes the lateral movement that it can go through.
Okay, so like when you have 30 people line dancing on your deck, these are super important.
Right, I'm not sure how often you run into that, but yeah, this would definitely help for a situation like that.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and secure this first one up top. I'll have you do the next one. So as you're doing this, obviously, we're able to help each other out, but if you're working alone, you can always just clamp it on both sides. It'd be just as easy. All right,
Yeah.
here we go. So let's go ahead and install the rest of them, and then we're gonna be working on our beam tape.
All right. All right.
Hey, thanks
you
for grabbing the
go.
tape.
No problem.
All right, let's go ahead and get this installed.
Okay. Now, is this code approved or code mandated as well? I know everything else has been. up to
Could
this
be,
point.
very rarely though. Again, we just kind of go above and beyond.
Okay.
We're just adding this to extend the life of our beams.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm gonna start at the end here.
Okay.
What I'm gonna have you do is once I get this attached, I'm gonna roll it out and then I'll have you just work your way down, kind of smooth it as we go.
Okay.
Okay?
That's good.
Set it away. All right. So go ahead and start smoothing that out. Just wanna make sure it gets stuck on completely.
Okay.
I'll work my way all the way down. All right, so this phase of the project is completed. I think this would be a great time for you to give us a quick recap.
Sure. So we poured our footing.
Right, and those 6-inch footings, bottom of the post hole.
Exactly. And then we dropped in our post.
Right.
Then we assembled our beam and finally backfilled our post hole.
All right, well don't forget we also added on the beam tape on all of
Right.
our beams. All right, so the next thing I'll be doing is attaching the ledger to the house. If you'd like to see a full video on that and a whole lot more covering the entire deck building process, you can go to trex.com/academy. Thanks for watching.